Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarot the Stashway. This is number 32, Tarot the Stashway number 32. And I'll be honest with you, this isn't really a tarot stash thought about tarot. It belongs to the amazing Timy Raven. Hi, Tim.
Whoa. Get my hand in the field of view here.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
So I am thrilled to have you here. I'm having this. I have been talking about this for almost a week, Tim.
Oh,
probably longer than a week. I've mentioned it on every single live that I've been in. No pressure or anything.
Well, I was witness to a few of those. I've popped
yes. and of course, if you are in chat, when you show up in chat, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a live with Timy Raven soon.
Yay!
And we're talking about tarot duality.
Yes.
And, so this is very exciting. Well, I do want to get caught up and say to people, Tim is still figuring out his YouTube channel, so we don't have one of those yet. However, he does have a new album that is out.
Musician.
Hello, yes, you're a musician.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
I'm the bass player. You know, the bass player is always the troublemaker in the band, right?
I didn't know that. I just always thought that the bass player was the one who, if you have a good bass player, you can go anywhere with it.
That's right. Well, the bass player is the coolest member in the band. That's me.
This is just in.
I used to be a drunken bass player, but now I'm a sober bass player. I'm a much better bass player now.
Congratulations. Isn't that amazing?
The album.
It's the album. Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, please remember this is for entertainment. Oh, wait a minute. This is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. Really. And as always, I am reminding everyone to like this video and subscribe because it's free. If you know somebody who you think would benefit from this concept, please, please, please share this with them. We have some of the best chatters are here, and Purple Elephant Deb H, it says, love for the bass players.
That's good. Woman of my heart.
There you go. And Hershey was here first. Russ Bob's Barbara. We have...
Hi, Hershey.
We have Madame Maru is here. We have Diana Oil Painter, who is driving. Diana is with me for a laugh and learn on Thursday about beekeeping.
Oh, cool.
So, yes. Linda de Gonzalez is here. And
hi, Linda.
Linda and I are doing a Tarot the Stashway. Tomorrow, we're talking about learning decks. So this is really, really good. Maru has put up your Instagram.
Thank you. So my artist too.
Yes, yes. So
unfortunately.
Wait a minute, what?
Unfortunately. I'm a poor artist.
No. We need to get
I'm rich in experience, but poor in cash.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Maybe I'll change. Maybe my YouTube fortunes will expand.
There you go. So lots of people. Oh, Marie said I started learning bass guitar, but lost access to the instrument.
Yeah, gotta have a bass.
It does help. So, Timy Raven. Hi, welcome. What would you like to tell people about you as we move into this really fascinating topic?
Well, I'll give a brief background. I'm a 61-year-old American man. I live on the East Coast, near Baltimore City. I did escape from Baltimore for quite a few years. I lived in Los Angeles for 17 years, and I was an IT professional, so I traveled all over the country. I was a alcoholic that whole entire time, but I was a very functional alcoholic. I made,
Mm-hmm.
I spent it all, and I traveled all over the country. But I mostly lived in Los Angeles, and worked out there. And I really liked Los Angeles a lot. But I had a problem. I had a
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, and eventually that catches up with you. And I had a big crash,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up moving back to the East Coast. My elderly parents needed help, and I needed a place to live. So we have a mutually beneficial situation here. This
Sure.
house, I'm living here, but my father's 90 and my mother's 87, and
Uh,
they can't drive anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I'm semi-retired. I'm not without means, but I'm not working full time anymore. And as I said, I'm a recovering alcoholic. So Alcoholics Anonymous is where I ended up, and Alcoholics Anonymous is what led me to the tarot.
mm-hmm.
And I'll describe that. So 6 years, my sobriety date is the 12th of December, 2018, which was 6
Mm-hmm.
years, 6 months, and 5 days ago. Tomorrow will be 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days.
Oh,
Yeah. Maybe we
that's
should have done this tomorrow, or maybe not. Maybe today's the good day. 665. So anyway, um, I went through the 12 steps.
mm-hmm.
And in the 12 steps, first thing you learn is self-honesty, being honest with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then being honest with the people around you. And you learn a sense of humility. I was an atheist, and I thought I was the smartest person in the room. And I learned that I'm not the smartest person in the room. And, there is a higher power, and you can call it any name you want. But the thing that we learn in AA that's important about your higher power is that it's not you. You are not
Uh-huh.
your higher power. You have no control over things that happen in life. You have no control over other people's behavior. And I always thought I did. And I always tried real hard to manipulate things and manipulate people. And it's a pathway to failure. So you learn honesty, you learn humility, you learn self-reflection. Those are steps 4 through 9. You make amends to people that you harmed, and you learn meditation, and you learn how to correct your mistakes as you make them and admit when you make a mistake. And you learn to help yourself by helping others. That's a critical part
Mm-hmm.
of my recovery and, people in AA. And part of this, as it led to the tarot, one of the reasons why I engaged with you, Gerald, and everybody that can hear my voice and everyone in the chat room is that this is part of my 12th step, which is sharing what I've learned about life and my recovery and things that
Mm-hmm.
work with others.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done this with people in AA, and but I wanted to, what I really wanted to do was meet up and engage with people that really know the tarot, that have been doing it for years and years. I've only been doing this for about 9 months. And, the interpretive structure that I've stumbled upon, discovered, I think it's already there. It was designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
That interpretive structure has helped me make decisions in my life, and it works. And I've shown it to other AA people, but they don't have the deep understanding that you do, Gerald, and the people that I've seen in the chat room over the last month or two when I've really been engaging with the community. They don't have the deep understanding of the symbology of these cards. And I really wanted to have a higher level conversation and interaction with people,
Mm-hmm. And what's beautiful is Timmy reached out to me, and I say this with all sorts of awe in my heart. Timmy makes me look like an underachiever. Okay. And I give this compliment to you. Timmy he's, may I sing your praises and make you a little uncomfortable?
Please do.
Okay. I reached out to Timmy. We set up a Zoom just to get to know each other, because I'm like going, I watch his comments in the chat. Some of you, hands up if you've seen his comments in the chat. They're very insightful. And I'm like going, ooh, this is really quite interesting. So what Tim did is he actually sent me a whole list of what he's been thinking about, including an illustration. And my mind is pretty blown. Tarot and duality, yes, it exists. It draws on lots of things. For someone who has been doing this for about 9 months, well done. Well done.
Thank you.
And keep doing it, because you are really on a great track, and it's adding insight to me. So I thank you for sharing it with me and letting us share it with other people. And so I'm going to take a second. I'm going to take a sip, and then I want to catch up on chat. So
okay, we'll watch. Go for the sip.
Okay, so there has been some congratulations for you on your sobriety.
Thank you.
And so I think, this is very, very important. Yeah, you got to give it away to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And Hershey said, I know the 12 steps well. I built my shadow work around my version of it. So a lot of power. And yeah, building a strong foundation in AA and Al-Anon. That's great. I'm glad you did that. And Linda agrees with me. You do offer very thoughtful insights.
Well, thank you, Linda.
And
my secret advocate.
Yeah, not so secret. Linda's a big fan, as am I. And
well, I'm a not so secret advocate of Linda too. I think she's lovely.
Yes. And and this just in, Debbie H is watching for her car. It's being delivered anytime now.
New car. I'm into cars.
Yes. So, and this amazing person, Medium Betsy Palmer, my best AMIC intro. I started coming because my mom told me to.
What's AC?
I don't know what that is. What is that? ACIM? Help me out with that. So
we'll come back to that.
Yes. And so we talked briefly about AA. Oh, here it is. A Course in Miracles.
Oh, okay.
And yes, that's right. Betsy, who, by the way, lovely, amazing human being. Boom, I said it. Come for me, YouTube. Argue with me. It's true. She is. Yes, it's A Course in Miracles. And I love this. My best A Course in Miracles intro. I started coming because my mom told me to. I love that.
Any motivation works.
Yes. And
including with passive motivation. Yes.
And by the way, I also think the fact, and she's like, oops, sorry. But the great thing is it was honest. When you start from a place of honesty and authenticity, you can go anywhere. I encourage people, when they are looking at the tarot, to approach it with the honesty that they have and the authenticity. You come to the tarot from, correct me if I'm wrong, from your higher power is truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you needed a way to figure out, okay, what's the truth in this, and what, because it's outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
But you can use you to find it.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
All of the answers in your life are already inside of you. And we are prevented from seeing these things clearly because of lack of insight, bedevilments, bad habits,
yes,
things that we learn from our parents and our friends and family that are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And just none of us, well, perhaps We should continue with the AA journey into the tarot because it answers all these questions.
Go for it.
So you know, I've only been doing the tarot thing for 9 months, but I think some of the insight that you sense coming from me is because I've been involved in AA for 6.5 years, and for 4.5 years I was secretary. I did service work, and I ran a 12 and 12 meeting, a 12-step meeting. That's once a week for 4.5 years, and the insight that I have is from that experience. I mean, I've heard hundreds of people sharing hundreds of times about things that worked in their life, things that didn't work in their life, you know, common conflicts. And, you know, addiction affects everyone. When you go to an AA meeting, you got rich people in there, and you got poor people, you got homeless people, you got suburbanites, you got teenage kids addicted to heroin, you got 80-year-old men and women addicted to alcohol. You know, you get a lot of different people, but their stories are all the same, you know, and the mistakes they make are all the same. And they're not mistakes particularly. I think it's just lack of knowledge, you know. And, you know, people call the tarot, you know, esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge. But I think it's important for us to connect to these philosophies in our life. You know, I was an atheist, you know, Mr. Science, and, you know, that's fine, but it doesn't give you any comfort. It doesn't give you any answers as to why in the hell you're here in the first place. You know, why am I even bothering to go through all this effort in my life? Especially when I was an alcoholic and everything was failing. You know, I was like, I was working harder than I've ever worked, and everything was falling apart. Why is that? It's not because of science. It's because my core philosophy was zero. I mean, I had none. So what I learned, the bridge, I would say, from AA to the tarot is I learned in AA that there are not good and evil people. You know, I thought I was an evil person at times, you know, and I thought I was a good person at times. But the truth is, there's no good and evil. There's just balanced and unbalanced.
Ah, okay.
And I have a little story about that. When I was brand new in AA, less than a year sober, I joined a home group, and the home group almost immediately made me secretary because they saw they had the need for a secretary, but they thought this guy needs to do this because he's going to slip away from the group. You know, all of them, I went to prison. I went through all kinds of legal issues. I had to pay a whole lot of money. I've had 3 DWIs. The third one was the one that sent me to prison. And, you know, all that stuff had been taken care of and behind me. And I was slipping away from the AA thing, just like I'd always done in the past. You know, once all the problems are solved, then you just go back to your old bad habits, right? So they said, why don't you be secretary? And you sit up front. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And they're like, just do it. And when you're in AA, you're supposed to do what people tell you to do. So I did do that. So the thing that I learned is the guy that did that huge favor for me was the greatest guy. He was salt of the earth. You know, he would do anything for you. He was extremely generous. He was doing all sorts of excellent social positive things. And, you know, I thought, what a great guy. He's a good guy. He's not an evil guy. But then on your anniversary, your sobriety date anniversary, you get up in front of your home group and you talk about your past, and you talk about, you know, your experiences from the past. And he described his life as a heroin addict. And oh my God, I would have hated his guts. I would have said, you are an evil MFer, son of a bitch. The things that he did to his family and his friends were the worst, you know. But he completely redeemed himself. I had zero feeling of that type of stuff coming from him when I met him, because he'd been sober for, you know, 7 or 8 years at that point. And that was a shock to me, because that showed me that all of these judgments that I was laying on people for being bad people or evil people, they're not inherently evil or bad. They're just extremely unbalanced. And that is what I learned in 4th step, when we would have discussions about the 4-step, where you have extremes of behavior being the problem. And the success is when you move away from the extremes and you move to the middle, to the balance point.
Yes.
You know, in the example that I gave to you with that, Gerald, was in the 4-step book. It said, you know, one alcoholic will be a miser, and he refuses to spend money on himself or his family, and he just refuses to spend money in a really malicious, unpositive way. And then it said in the chapter, and then on the other hand, you have another alcoholic that spends money like a drunken sailor, that spends money they don't have. They go nuts. They completely go into huge amounts of debt. And both of those are bad. You know, they have bad outcomes for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hear people share, and they're like, oh, yeah, I used to like spend money like crazy. And then I learned how to budget, and, you know, but, you know, they don't become misers, but they don't do the crazy spending before.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, so it's the middle way is the way.
Yes.
And it's a balance point. And that's when I started getting fascinated with dualities. And, you know, I'm a science guy. I like reading about quantum theory. Duality is everywhere in physics and in science.
Yes.
It's everywhere in computers. Binary language is a duality. Human personalities are a duality. I was learned that in AA. So I saw this YouTube documentary on Carl Jung, the psychologist. And if you're familiar with him, he was a little bit of an occultist himself. I mean, he had a very open mind.
Yes.
And I saw this documentary on duality and Carl Jung, and it talked about the tarot. And I was fascinated. And it was like, wow, this is exactly the type of thing I'm talking about, you know. And I was hungry for more information about duality and how it fits in with human psychology. And they had a bunch of examples, and I was like, oh, you know, they look pretty good. That's interesting. And I remembered that I had a tarot deck in my house. I'd bought it a couple years earlier, and I just opened it and looked at it, and I didn't know anything about it. So I pulled that out and I started looking for dualities, and I didn't know anything about it. So I just started watching YouTube video after YouTube video, learning how the cards work, how they're structured. There's, you know, the major arcana, I call it the minor arcana, but you call it the royal
court cards.
Court cards. I can't remember that for some
and don't worry about that, Tim, because this is where because when we're having a discourse, we're sharing ideas. Part of what we have to do is we have to understand the words we're using. So the court cards, and you call them you were referring to them as the minor?
Right, the minor arcana. And then the number cards, the pips.
Yep, the pips. Yep.
So what I did then, I was like, okay, there's 3 parts. So I went through the whole mishmash of the deck that I had, and I separated them all out. And, you know, that was a whole like learning experience there, you know, because it's overwhelming. I mean, how many cards are there? Like 100 and some?
There's 78.
78 cards.
It can feel like 108. Yeah, I'm not good at math, says the computer guy. That's okay.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm good at like big math, but not little math.
So you were separating out the cards, and you had, what was the first tarot deck? I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what your first tarot deck was. Was it a Rider-Waite-Smith, or was it was a Marseille, correct?
Yes, it was a generic Barnes and Noble Marseille deck. And the what is it? The two of Pentacles. I think it's Grimaud. Grimaud, and it had a date on it. I could hunt through and find it, but
that's okay. It's okay.
But it was a Marseille deck, and it was in English. You know, the labels are in English, but it doesn't have any other nonsense. It's just the original deck design and you know, the magician, the high priestess, etc. So separated them out, and I looked at the numbers, and they didn't seem like dualities. And I looked at the minor arcana, and they didn't seem particularly like dualities. But I looked at the majors, and I saw dualities right away. I mean, card 1 and card, well, I took the Fool and the World out. because
which it makes a lot of sense, actually, Tim.
Yeah.
You know, that you had that intuitive response, and that makes sense.
So I removed those two, and then you have the 20 in the middle. And for lack of any other reason, I just strung them all out in order. And I'm very left-handed, so I like doing things from right to left. So I strung them all out that way, and I started looking for duality. So you look at the first two, the magician and the high priestess. Well, there's a duality. There's a male and a female, right? Mm-hmm. So then I looked at card 3 and 4, and there you go, another male and a female. And then I looked at 5 and 6, and that was this Pope looking guy, and then 2 people getting married, the lovers. And I'm like, is that a duality? I don't know. And then I looked at the next one, which was the Chariot versus Justice. And I was like, that could be a duality. I mean, you got like a war guy with spears, and then you got a woman with the balance, you know, like Justice. You know, that looked like one. They all looked like one. Yes. It looked like there was 10 of them. Some of them were stronger and more obvious than others. But what I ended up doing was I started looking into the meanings of the cards more. And I also came across the Tree of Life, you know, the Hermetic Tree of Life.
Yes.
Not particularly the Hebrew, like Jewish, like one, because they kind of all sort of split off, I think, historically at some point a few hundred years ago, and people went in different directions. But the concepts are the same. There's 10 Sephiro on the Tree of Life, and I see 10 duality pairs in the Marseille deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking at the meanings, the Hebrew meanings of each of the Sephiro, and they were matching up to me. It seemed like to me, I mean, I'm a troubleshooter. I'm a technical guy. I obsess on things. I like details. I'm an artist. I like visuals. I put all of my attention on this, and I saw a pattern. And you know, I sent you some documentation as to what I think these dualities are, and I can show them in the cards today. But what this meant to me really is the 12 steps of AA is designed to help you pull yourself out of that impossible hole that you dug and recover from addiction. It's very specific for that. I wanted more. I wanted to know more about how the real world works. So these duality pairs seem to me to be a roadmap for my behavior. And it shows you the path that's the path of happiness. It's the path of prosperity. And it delivers those things in a reliable way, a sustainable way.
Yes.
And to me, that was extremely valuable. And I believe that this Marseille deck was compiled by some very wealthy people in Florence, Italy during the Renaissance. You know, Lorenzo the Great was the Doge of Italy, a Doge of Venice at the time. Very wealthy international traders. And he had a whole group of polymath type geniuses. You know, he surrounded himself with intellectuals and artists. Botticelli was one of the people I think involved. You know, these things are all on the internet. I just watched documentaries, and, you know, I think that group of people synthesized the philosophies of the Greeks, who also had synthesized the philosophy of the Egyptians and all the other like large civilizations at the time, going all the way back to caveman times where people were painting on cave walls. And these symbols symbolize human behavior, in my opinion. And it's very refined and very elegant. There are 10 primal human dualities that define our behavior. And once you see them out explicated in front of you with detail, what it does for me personally is it helps me think easier and come to easier solutions for, you know, things that come up in my life, and not just bad stuff, but good stuff too.
Yes.
It helps me make balanced decisions. It helps me have balanced behavior instead of going to those extremes where all the failure is, you need to be congruent with nature itself. I think I made a comment, go with the flow, nature is relentless. Go with nature's flow and give yourself a break. Why not? I mean, you can go 10 different ways, but there's this one way that's in congruence with nature. Why not pick that one?
And what's really wonderful, and I'm so honored that you're willing to share this with all of us who are watching and people who are watching the playback, because I have a feeling there are people who need this approach and you're reaching them. So you're doing that 12th step.
Yes.
And that's really
thanks for
powerful.
the opportunity.
Oh my
thanks
gosh.
for the opportunity to do this.
And by the way, we already have a part 2 scheduled of this on July 2nd of 2025. I think there may also be a part 3. There could be a part 4, and then maybe a regular spot. Maybe. I'm not trying to push my way into what Tim wants to do.
We could do card readings,
We can absolutely do card readings.
I'm good with the interpretive structure part, but I'm a little weak on the individual card interpretations and fitting it into the story,
And I think that is it's a really smart approach. The fact that you're figuring out this structure of the duality, these what, they're 10 dualities, 2, 4, 6, 8. The 10 dualities is really fascinating. All of those other things are nuances and things to support the story. So you're starting with what's the big thing, what's out of balance. And by the way, Timmy and I were chatting backstage, and one of the things that I said is a clear question is the best thing for you to get a clear answer.
It's half the battle.
Yes.
Defining the question.
And boy, in order to do that, one has to do the things that they need to do.
Work energy.
Yes. So we have got some great comments, and
let's see what people are saying.
Witchy Garden 919 said, I have been clean and sober for 14 years. Congratulations. And my husband has been sober for 3 years. You'll always have support, Tim. You will always have support. And Hypnicity Nalani said, Merlin was my higher power when I started. Turns out he's been with me through many lifetimes.
Yes.
And it's like, how did you find it, Timmy, Gerald?
No, it was the other way around. I found Gerald.
Yeah, I have no idea. I can tell you that if you ever need, the universe to say, yeah, this is a good thing, pay attention, Gerald, and boom, it was there.
It was actually Robin's channel.
Oh yeah,
what was it, Toadstool
Tarot?
And you did a little dual thing with him, and I was asking, I was saying some things about the what was it? It was the archetype of manifestation, and you went, "Ooh, look at this! What is this?"
Yeah. Oh yes. Linda said, "I'm really surprised about 10 dualities. For some reason, I thought there might be 12 astrological signs, etc." Well,
I think it's 10 because we have 10 of these. I think that's human math right there. That's where the number cards come from.
Ah, there you go.
I can wax poetic on this shit.
No, this is all good. I do want to. We'll start talking about these dualities a little bit, and then we're going to see how Tim uses this in a reading for himself. But
we might have time for that. Yep.
We will make a little bit of time. So
okay.
But here, let's pause for this. This section of the video is brought to you by the word duality. Everyone say it with me. Duality. Duality. The quality or state of having two different or opposite parts or elements. Embrace duality and like, share, and subscribe to find balance. Duality.
Duality. Like and subscribe. Two things.
Ah, there you go. And Linda says, well, yes, that makes perfect sense. It's a decimal system.
Oh.
So, okay, I just want to make sure, because I do want to taunt people a little bit with a few of the the pairings that you have, which is really, really quite good, because when I think about duality, you can layer that concept over lots of things.
Yes.
Especially if you want to find balance. Because the balance is when things are balanced, it all works. Now, are we balanced all the time as human beings? No, we're not supposed to be. Well, Gerald thinks you don't have to be. So,
well, the key is to be already in the middle, and then you can be nimble and adjust.
Yes.
But if you're way the hell over on one side, you're screwed. You're on a path to trouble.
You're on a path of a lot of learning opportunities that need to show up, and learning opportunities. They're not just learning opportunities for ourselves, but they're learning opportunities for those of us who experience us. So Linda Kelzer said, this is a very interesting discussion. Thank you. New perspectives are always beneficial.
Yes, I agree.
So, do you want to show this
the
first?
Cards? No, let's do the cards first.
Okay. You want to show your cards, or you want to talk about? Okay, go ahead.
So do I do that, or do you flip it?
You get to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to flip to my camera to see the cards.
Because one of the things that Tim has done is it's not just wait a minute, that's not what
we can look at the tree too. I mean,
look here, that's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. But here's the good thing, Tim. I'm singing praises about you, so gird your loins, get ready. Not only have you thought about this, you've also enabled yourself to go, how can I use this to help me with my balance?
Correct.
So, okay. So feel free to share, sir.
Okay. So I normally use my Marseille deck. And this is the deck that I use. But for this demonstration, it's a lot easier to see the Rider-Waite-Smith images. And also, when I do draws, a lot of times when I do the number cards, I go to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and use that as a reference, because when I pull them out, they're more illustrative, and it's easier to remember the meaning of the Pip card from Rider-Waite as opposed to the more abstract Marseille deck, which is kind of, correct, Baroque or whatever. But I like the cards, the Marseille cards. And also, I'm going to use the Rider-Waite as a demonstration. But as many of you know, Rider-Waite changed the order of two of the cards, and it screws up the dualities when they're flipped. I think there was an astrological reason for that. So strength and justice in the Rider-Waite are flipped. So what I did was I manifested a modification onto my Rider-Waite-Smith where I just changed the number of the cards. So you'll see that maybe.
Yeah. So for this purpose, the 8 is justice and strength is 11.
Yes.
Keep that in mind. I will remind everybody later.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll begin. Our lives commence with the Fool and culminate with the World. shaped by 10 fundamental dualities. Prosperity and success arise from finding equilibrium between these behavioral extremes, a balance essential for entering the door to spiritual enlightenment. That's a little thing that I wrote to explain how this works. So we start our journey as the fool, and our destination is the world. And the first duality are these two. I am one, the magician, and I am two, the high priestess. Together, we illustrate the duality of interior focus. Masculine versus spiritual feminine. And then there's also this one and the next one have added layers of complication. And I'll just say it now. Not only do you have spiritual male versus spiritual female, but you also have biological male versus biological female, you know, penises and vaginas. You got the spiritual part of it. And then there's also, I think, a third duality, which is the biological animal versus the spiritual masculine and feminine. So there's, so this is interior focus, this duality.
Yes.
The next duality, I am three, the empress, and I am four, the emperor. Together, we illustrate the duality of exterior focus, the way you present yourself to the world. And again, it's the same as the interior focus. You have spiritual feminine versus spiritual male. And then you also have the biological element too. The third duality is this one. And you know, these are in perfect numerical order. I am five, the Hierophant, and I am six, the lovers. Together, we illustrate the duality of relationships. Spiritual love, the Hierophant, versus physical love, the lovers. The next duality is this. I am seven, the Chariot, and I am eight, Justice. Together, we illustrate the duality of assertiveness. Physical assertiveness with the Chariot, and intellectual assertiveness with rules, laws, and codes of behavior with Justice. And that's one of the ones where I had to change the number from the Rider-Waite. The next one, I am nine, the Hermit, and I am 10, the Wheel of Fortune. Together, we illustrate the duality of the world of work. Intellectual work, represented by the Hermit, and physical work, represented by the Wheel of Fortune. The next duality is this one. I am 11, Strength, and I am 12, the Hanged Man. Together, we illustrate the duality of motivation. Strength is active motivation, and the Hangman represents passive motivation. Sometimes doing nothing is the correct answer, or just going with the flow. Sometimes strength is the answer. One foot in front of the other, keep on going. The next duality is this one. I am 13, Death, and I am 14, Temperance. Together, we illustrate the duality of decision making. Death represents impulsive, bridge burning decisions. Temperance represents tempered decisions, measuring twice and cutting once, or measuring 3 times and cutting once, or measuring 10 times, or maybe just measuring forever and never making a cut. That's the extreme of temperance. Death is the extreme of impulsive, perhaps unwise decisions. The next duality is this one. I am 15, the Devil, and I am 16, the Tower. Together, we illustrate the duality of insight. The Devil represents internal self-bondage, self-incarceration, arbitrary rules that have no basis in reality, versus the Tower, which is no internal rules, having no boundaries, no sense at all. You run up to the top of the tower and you jump off and you see what happens. This is insight.
Mm-hmm.
The next duality is this one. I am 17, the star, and I am 18, the moon. Together, we illustrate the duality of humility. The star is knowing who you are in the outside world, and the moon represents what you are on the inside world. Um, the next duality is this last one. I am 19, the sun, and I am 20, judgment. Together, we illustrate the duality of spiritual awakening. You must do outside work with outside people as the sun, but you also must do inside work, judgment of yourself, and doing
Mm-hmm.
internal philosophical work. And you need to do both of these things in order to experience spiritual awakening. You can't just do one or the other. You can't just interact with people. And there's direct examples of this in AA. We have people in AA who've been sober for years, but all they do is go to meetings, and they don't do any step work. They don't do any reading. They don't do any internal self-reflection. They just go to the meetings and, do all the fun stuff like that. And then there's other people that do the opposite. They never go to meetings and they have no social interactions, but they do read the books, and they read and read all by themselves in
Sure.
isolation. And that doesn't work. You need to do both. And that's the point of all of these dualities. The successful path is not one side or the other side. The successful path is right down the middle. And I can attest to that. I have been practicing this in all of my affairs, searching for balance. And the fact that there are 10 of these that are so well defined, I've been using these cards to help me make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been working out very well for me. And, we could do an example of that. But maybe before we do that, we should look at the tree of life. And I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold. I have to
No,
blow
it's
my nose
fine.
a little bit
It's
here.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to put us like this for a second.
Okay.
And we've got about 10 minutes left. So
All right.
do you want me to put that up?
Yeah, go ahead and we'll put that up.
Okay.
And I think I can move it. So looking at this is the tree of life. And you can see the first duality is interior focus right there at the bottom. And then right above that is exterior focus. And the third one is relationships. The fourth one is assertiveness. Then you go to 5, which is at the bottom. Work. And then the 6th one is motivation. The 7th one is decisions. And excuse the little stretchy thing here. I'm not the best graphics art design. And then we've got the 8th duality is insight. 9th is humility. And then 10th is spiritual awakening at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And the concepts of these dualities fit pretty neatly into the concepts on the original, Hebrew tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had to change the order of 8 and 9, but they're very close. I mean, I just went with the concepts rather than the, some structure, because apparently the tree of life structure changes, has changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So we could flip away from that.
Okay.
But that also helped me. Here, I'll flip back to the regular camera.
Yeah, so we can see your smiley face.
Yeah. Maybe we don't have time to do a full reading because it might take a few minutes. Maybe we should answer questions. What do you think we should do next?
Let's answer questions. This is a very high level overview. Of course, that's what it is, a high level overview. Mm-hmm. This is an overview of the idea of the duality as Tim sees it. What questions do people have in chat about that? I will capture those as a way to help us with our part 2, which is happening in 2 weeks, I believe, which will be July 2nd at the same time. And if you don't have a question, what are your initial impressions of it? Because, I mean,
And I hope I didn't put a blanket on. I mean, we could do the card reading, but it'll take more than 9 minutes.
Okay. It's okay. I mean, you didn't put a blanket on it. I have to say, this is a lot of information to take in.
It is. It was difficult. I mean, I overwhelm people with this. I'm like, oh, look at this tree of life. And they're like, I don't understand any of this shit, you know?
No.
And it's like, it's very complicated in ways. It's complicated in that it's a new concept. And and the thing is, well, one thing I can discuss additionally is I saw these duality pairs and I'm like, oh, well, that's clearly designed in there. So I would do internet searches for, duality interpretations of the tarot, and there were none. I didn't see any. I mean, there are people that talk about dualities in the cards, but not as like an interpretive structure. And my first
Diana says, this is awesome. Well thought out, Tim.
Thanks. What was I saying?
The dualities, you're not seeing those in other places, people talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that it's designed into the system itself, and it doesn't change the meanings of the cards, historical meanings of the cards. It's just an interpretive structure to solve a question that you have. And what I do as a general overview of that is, you saw my table. I had the 3 different colors, the 3 different tarot colors. Along the top row, I put the duality that's in question. I have a question. We'll do a card reading next time about my YouTube channel. I want to start a meditation channel, a YouTube meditation channel, and I built this little digital altar. It's 5 different little screens. You can kind of sort of see it over here, and it's an electronics project. But when I do meditations, I like to have ambient sounds of the earth and also musical tones, but not anything that's like music where it's real engaging. You want it to be able to like lose yourself in the moment. So it got to the point where I was doing more than one. I would watch like a seashore with the waves coming in, and I'd meditate with that, and then I'd mix it in with like a recording I made out in the backyard of the birds, and then I put those 2 together. I was like, oh, that's even better. And then I'd say, well, how about this other one? And then I ended up with like 5 or 6 simultaneous images playing at the same time. And it's really, I guess it's self-hypnosis. I mean, it has a profound effect on me when I do that for about a half an hour. So my idea was to build a physical version of it, and it worked great. And then just do a meditation channel where I put together these soundscapes, because I'm a sound music guy. And, there's art to mixing all the things in so that you can kind of hear everything. And it really, to me, it's what it does is it illustrates the immensity of reality. You have this beach over here, and at the same time, you have Niagara Falls at night, and then here you have like fish underneath the ocean, and then here you have an old parking lot, with a neon sign that's flashing, and then you put all those together and you just lose yourself in these realms, and it allows you to detach that death grip that you have on the moment in time right now, and that allows you a connection to your root, which I think is our intellect. I think our intellect is separate from our biological body. And I think reincarnation is a reality. I think that we ride these biological bodies for however long it lasts. And our spiritual intellect is incorporated into it. And then when the biological body dies, our spiritual intellect goes to the next one. I think this is a design of life. I think that is the meaning of life,
Yes. Witchy Garden 919 said, very fascinating. And does Timmy have his own channel? I'd like to follow, subscribe. So,
well, not yet, but I'm working on it.
Stay tuned. And trust me, as we continue to do shows and that evolves, I will definitely be sharing that information. And if I remember, I will go back and add it to the description. One thing that I found very helpful that you said is you have used this duality in the tarot for your reading, which we can show next time. But a lot of times people use tarot when things are difficult for them. That's a natural tendency. People will pick up the cards, they'll ask a question when they're having difficult times. You shared you do this for things that are going well and things that you're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
How's that for a balance? I think that's lovely. The idea of this is a tool that is available to you, and you
Right.
use it.
I use it as a ritual. I use it as a spur to meditate on things that are happening in my life.
Yes.
It forces me to sit down and slow down and be in the moment. It really is a in the moment thing.
It really is. And because in the moment really is about that balance, isn't it? When
Mm-hmm.
we are here, we're paying attention. There's a lot of spiritual paths that talk about being in the moment.
Yes.
Being in the moment.
And you should be nimble. You should be able to be in the moment and experience the moment, experience this sensual world that we've perhaps created for ourselves, and as well as being in the moment, have the nimbleness to detach from the moment and connect to your root, which is the eternal part of us, the immortal part of us.
Ooh, I like that.
And, our intellect, we're starting to learn about the quantum realm. And I think that's the veil. I think that's whatever that ends up being. I think that's where our intellects lie. And I think is there forever. And I think it's perhaps a pool that we all draw from. And, I have a side business, this art business, and I talk with artists all the time. And one of our artists, he does whale photography, like giant whales. And he dives. He's a diver. He swims with whales and takes close-up pictures of their eye, and it's amazing stuff. And he says there is no doubt in his mind that whales are fully intelligent creatures. There's no reason physiologically why they wouldn't be. They have bigger brains and bigger nervous systems than we do. And I think, the reincarnation process includes creatures like that, I mean, we're homicidal apes. They're like big floating whales, what's the difference?
Yeah. I love this. I love this. Timmy, I am grateful that you reached out to me. You took that risk because you just see me online. I try to who I am online is who I am offline too. So I try to keep that. And really that's just because I'm lazy. I can't remember what personality I had online. So it's just easier to be who I
Honest,
am.
truthful.
And and that way, and it's like, yes. And Witchy Garden said, we all have our own ways of healing that is calming to us. Yes.
And it constantly evolves, our ways.
And I think it should evolve. If it doesn't evolve, is it really working?
It's static,
Yeah.
Nature doesn't favor static change.
No.
Change
Oh my gosh. Needed. Well, if we look outside at Mother Nature, she's been doing this for a millennia or two, and it's working. But pretty much until we are getting involved. But she's figuring out how to work with it, because guess what? We're going to get to summer, and then we're going to get to winter. It's the natural.
Yes.
And honestly, honesty is always easier than the alternative, and I'm very lazy. Girl, do not I'm lazier than you.
When you're following the divine path of honesty, you can afford to be lazy because, you're just riding high on that freight train. Nothing can stop you on that highway.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
It's a superpower. The sobriety that I enjoy and the my efforts, like with these duality behavioral things to, modify my own behavior, it's a superpower. It really is. Things that I've never been able to achieve in my life, like that recording studio album that we just did. I've been a musician all my life, and I've been interested in recording, but I've never actually gone into a studio with my own original music and recorded it and finished it, and it sounded good. That's never happened to me until I got sober.
I love that. And just in case people may have missed it in the description, there's the album. I've put it into the chat.
Yeah, the band's called Headset, and the album's called Czarina. No, Electra. The first song is called Czarina.
Mm-hmm.
But you can listen to it for free. It's on Bandcamp. It's not really like a commercial studio contract album, but it's selling like hotcakes. I think we've sold 7 whole albums. But we mostly put it up because everybody's interested, all the people that we know, of what our band sounds like, and this is the presentation. We did it in a professional studio. It sounds good, I think.
I think I was thrilled when you sent it, and I think I surprised you because I'd listened to it several times because this is the music that I was listening to back in the day.
It's sort of like 80s and early 90s music.
Yep.
Because that's the era that I was in when I was most active, I guess.
Yep. Postmodern punk, little bit of industrial, and it's all good.
It's got an edge, but it's got a brain too.
It does. It does. Okay, so we're going to do this in, I think, 2 weeks. Okay. We're going to come back. I think I'd like to. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Balloons.
We are going to touch base, and if people have questions, they can leave them in the comments under this video. And we'll plan on maybe going through 3 or 4 of the dualities. And I know you want to show people what this looks like in action.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to describe it. I do an actual card draw based on an issue that's in my life that I need to make a decision about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to show things sometimes than to talk about it.
I agree. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. And this is really insightful because when you have somebody who has new ideas or a different way of looking at things, it's an opportunity for everyone to benefit.
It's true.
So, and okay. Tim, thank you for being here. Hang out for a couple of minutes. We'll do an after show debrief. And please, if you've watched this video, give it a thumbs up. Pay attention for the next show. And everyone take care. Bye.
Yeah. See you later. Thanks.